The road is uncertain, but the destination is clear. The path is uncharted, but we are pioneers. We do not know what tomorrow holds, but we know who holds tomorrow. The work of God is evident among us, and we believe His mighty work in us and for His kingdom is still yet unfinished.
Hey HSM, welcome to week 2 of our series called Unfinished that goes alongside a historic season in our church as we seek God's plans for our future. Remember, this series is particularly exciting because every campus and every ministry will be doing this series together. In this series, we will look at the example of Abraham, a man in the Bible that was called to go beyond his comfort level in commitment, obedience, and service to God. During these 4 weeks, we're going to take a look at our personal unfinished spiritual lives and our church's unfinished story as we head into all that God has for us in the future. We're hoping and praying to end the series with some commitments that help us to build uncompromising faith, share unprecedented hope, and spread unrelenting love. Last week, we looked at pursuing what really matters by pursuing what matters in the kingdom of God as opposed to our world. We looked at an unfinished kingdom mindset and what we should think about and pray about for kingdom things. This week, we're focusing on unfinished kingdom actions. We're looking at how to serve the kingdom obediently and consistently. So what do you think matters more? Serving once or serving consistently? Someone serving you one time or someone serving someone daily? You know, my parents have always been a great example of serving consistently throughout all circumstances. They're not perfect people, but they do their best to consistently serve the other person. They constantly try to put the other first by putting their needs above their own. They serve each other in little, consistent ways throughout the day, whether it's my dad packing my mom's lunch before she goes to work, or my mom letting my dad take over the TV during football season. My dad will take out the trash, and my mom will make him pancakes on Sunday mornings. My dad will help in my mom's classroom, and my mom will do my dad's laundry. So why do they do this? Because they know the covenant of marriage that they made before the Lord that calls them to put each other first, and they love each other. We may have examples of this in our own lives. People who serve selflessly and consistently. One thing we've all experienced is if someone serves us one time, it's definitely special. But if someone shows up and serves us every day, it's incredibly meaningful. Now, Abraham didn't have smooth sailing. He didn't have a smooth journey. He wasn't perfect. He occasionally went about things the wrong way. But when God said go, he went. When God asked him to build an altar, he did. Abraham has repeated acts of obedience throughout the book of Genesis. We learned last week that God requested something pretty major of him. Right? It said in Genesis 12:1, the Lord said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you." He did that. He traveled to a distant land. And what is crazy is that he got moved way outside of his comfort zone and then still tried his best to be generous and selfless. That brings us to our Abraham story for today. In Genesis 13, we see that Abraham was traveling to this new land with his relative named Lot. I know, not your average name. His name was literally Lot, not a Lot, but just Lot. They get to the new land, and it was too cramped for all of them and their family and their livestock. So it says in Genesis 13, verses 6 through 7, it says, "But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot." So if you're in this situation, let's pause. They're trying to share some land. Abraham has traveled all this way. He was asked to do this big, scary thing. He's incredibly uncomfortable, and it's not working out for them to both be in the same place. What would your response be? Well, let's think about it this way. Let's contextualize it to ourselves. You've been on a long trip, maybe a road trip. You get to the luxurious Airbnb, and no one's there yet. So which room do you take if you get the first pick? The nicest, most comfortable one, right? Well, that's not what Abraham did. He metaphorically waited in the family room with his luggage until his family picked first. Literally, check it out in Genesis 13, verses 8 through 9. It says, "Finally, Abram said to Lot, 'Let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we're close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any section of land you want, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I'll take the land on the right. If you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left.'" You guys, Abraham, in an incredibly stretching season, decides to put Lot and his family first. He decides to serve and give Lot the very best that he can offer. And I love what happens next in this story. We see that God blesses Abraham's selflessness. Let's keep reading verses 14 through 17. It says, "After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, 'Look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I'm giving you all this land, as far as you can see, to you and to your descendants as a permanent possession. And I'll give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I'm giving it to you.'" Look at that blessing that God gives to Abraham for being generous. And I want to make sure this does not mean that every time we're selfless or serve others, we get rich, right? I'm not saying that that's what God is doing here. But I do believe that we are always personally blessed in some way when we serve. The point is, Abraham had been through a lot, had already been obedient to God with some pretty major asks, and even still decided to serve the people he was with. Unfinished kingdom action means responding to God's request with obedience, which we see with Abraham's example, and serving in all seasons the people around us like he did. So how will you act? When you feel God nudging you towards something, will you respond with obedience? When you're in a crazy season, will you prioritize serving? Only you can find the time you have and the places you are in to serve. Your schedule, your time. Let me get really specific. What would it look like for you to map out your school year calendar with blocks for service? Right, we all do this, right? With our schedule, our planner. I literally have a planner that runs my life. What would it look like for you to plan out your day or your week or your month to include time for serving others, to prioritize it in such a way that it made it onto the plan? Your own family, your own church, your own world needs you to show up and serve. Imagine if we all did that. If we made commitments to be obedient to the Lord and to serve every week or every month. Our world is not going to look more like the kingdom of God if we sit on the sidelines. Our world is not going to be a better place if we don't serve others obediently and consistently in the power and love of Jesus Christ. Let's talk more about that with our groups tonight.